I think.
Meeting is streaming on Facebook. I've got that notification.
Okay, I think that now the people can hear us. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So, hello
Hello.
everyone. This is again Astrological Voyages, and we are having the great Wendy Stacey. Hello, Wendy.
Hey, Christos.
Wendy is a principal for Mega School of Astrology, and of course, she's also the chairperson for the Astrological Association of Great Britain, and personally, a great person for me.
Likewise.
So today, people, you can ask things. You can tell us what you want to hear from Wendy. Wendy is here for you to answer whatever you want. So you can have whatever question you have to Wendy, and also we are going to talk about the future of astrology, about the 2020 and the great planetary cycles, and of course about the unexpected planets. And I'm certainly sure that Wendy is going to tell us a lot of things.
No
So,
pressure.
um, Wendy, tell me how you look astrology's future, how you things are going in the future about astrology.
I think it's a really exciting future for astrology. I think it's going to be quite amazing, and I feel really privileged to be living through this era, actually. The last time, one of the cycles that we're talking about tonight, the Jupiter Saturn cycle in Aquarius, the last time this happened, astrology just soared. And Texts were written, ephemerae were written, and people were engaged with astrology. And I think it's actually going to be a really fascinating time to live through. I actually think we're in the right profession. And in terms of going forward, I think it's a going to be um, a huge wave, probably from about 2021, slowly, gradually, and then after a few years, it will. And I think that's also because spiritual people are interested in spiritual things. You know,
Mhm,
the millennials are interested in it. They want answers. Religion is on a decline, um,
mhm.
and so I think uh, the astrology, there is a big gap for people to find answers on how things work, how people tick, that sort of thing.
So, do you believe that astrology as a profession is something that people is going to choose it later on, or is a profession that is going to have a lot of problems?
I think it may become quite competitive. Um, because it's not an incredibly competitive industry, not really. But I think it could do, and I think more people will come into it. I think our jobs as astrologers is to weed out a lot of bad astrology. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
important to do. So I think we have a role to play in being professionally responsible for people. Like there's a and the internet doesn't have any filter, so um we need to be able to ensure that people are getting good material from the right sources and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'll be a concern, an ongoing concern. For example, Wikipedia, I don't know if people know this. Jimmy Wales, who owns Wikipedia, he's been on a quite a rampage for years to delete every astrological sort of reference
Mm-hmm.
on Wikipedia. There's been a few of us that have been fighting that for years, and um, so there's and whilst you don't have credible references and then you're going to get a lot of rubbish coming forward as well. So we need
Mm-hmm.
to make sure the good stuff is being is accessible to people. I think, yeah.
And do you believe that in the last years in astrology that I think became even more popular, quality is something that we need to care of, or that or quality is already happening?
Yes, yes. Yeah, I think so too. The quality, and so there's people are putting together good programs together, good education programs, and good writing is coming forward. And as long as it's I don't, I don't want to use the word policed because I don't like that word, but as long as it's being responsible and uh, edited it a little, then we will be fine. But I do think, yeah, while quality is going up, there's also the shadow side of that where there's more rubbish coming through as well, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, from your own personal communication with your students and with people around the world, do you believe that the interest in astrology became even more sophisticated, or that the everyday problems are mostly what someone is going to come to an astrologer and ask for?
I my clients, the clients that I get, are usually, people who are really struggling with something in their life. Um, I very, I get, I'm quite happy with the clients I have, and I don't get rubbish clients. But I think there's a lot of rubbish astrology out there, so I think there's
Mhm.
probably a lot of people that are perhaps going to people who aren't, certified or qualified, or or just don't know what they, I think it's so. I think we need to just be responsible for, as a community, to
Mhm.
ensure that the right material is accessible to students.
Yeah. And when I'm talking about the future of astrology, also, do you believe that we are overly digitalized, that we are so even computers?
Well, I don't think we're going to be near as much as what we're going to be. We're going to be a
Mhm.
lot more digital. So, no, I mean it caters for generations who are a lot. I'm sorry about this buzzing. I'm just trying to turn that off. So I just
I don't think that
sorry.
other people hear something.
Oh, okay. Um, so sorry, Christos. Can you just repeat what the
Yeah,
question?
about the digital
Oh,
way of
yeah, yeah, yeah,
dealing
yeah.
with astrology.
So I think that accommodates a really a much younger generation, and that's what they demand. They're not going to have, my I was going to say my generation, but actually probably your generation. You're younger than I am, but libraries. Like you're sitting in front of your library, which is wonderful, and
Mhm.
it's such an astrologers love that, but I don't think the younger generations are going to want that. They're going to have digital libraries. Everything's going to be digitalized. I mean, I have students that don't want to come into the classroom, the virtual classrooms. They want to watch the recording the next day. They don't want to interact or engage, and that's fine. That's their prerogative. But it's just part of
Mhm.
a more technological future, I think.
So let's go now to the big discussion, which I'm always saying that astrologers are usually more dramatic. And I know that you're writing a book about it. You're writing a book about 2020 and the current trends and what is going to happen. So I would like to hear you, and of course, all the people in ISAR and the Friends of Astrology want to hear your opinion. What do you believe that is finally going to happen in 2020?
Well, I think the start of 2020 is going to be a lot harder than the end of it. I think we're going to see a lot of fear growing from now until at least February next year. A lot of fear, and that's people uncertainty. The markets are going to, they're going to be very volatile,
Hmm.
uh, and uh, and I think people are going to be very scared, quite genuinely scared. So, and when that happens, anxiety rises, and health issues arise, that sort of thing. And I think that's building now, and it has been building really for the last. I don't maybe 6 to 8 months, a year maybe, and I think that's going to be really difficult to manage on a global level because it's happening everywhere. No one's immune from that. But I think we just have to remain aware that there is going to be a lot of fear mongering in order to keep our own sanity, really, and look after those who are, much more anxious than other people. And then towards the end of next year, I think it's going to be quite an exciting, fascinating time. Um, because the year will start with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, then we'll have the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, and then towards the end of the year we have the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. So it's a massive year in history, I would say, and I think the conditions will be set from early next year to provide the freedom and equality and democracy that people are yearning for towards the end of the year. And I see that now. I see that with my kids supporting Extinction Rebellion and the massive protest in London on climate change. You know, people are sick of reading in the news about Trump and Brexit and all the fear mongering. They actually are desperate for change, and good change, positive change, and climate change is such a very real and very huge concern, um, that it's going to, the end of next year is going to bring in a lot of new ways of thinking, and the young will change the way that older people think. I think, it's a wake up call. It's a massive wake up call.
Well, when I was talking to some astrologers in Athens, and they asked me what I believe it's the most dangerous thing about the Saturn Pluto, I saw the Acropolis, and I said the most dangerous thing is about democracy, is
Yeah,
about
absolutely.
losing democracy.
Absolutely. And the Acropolis is is the symbol for that, and because with the Saturn Pluto, there's so much desperate need for authority to maintain their authority, the status quo, um, and it's not really open for change. And there's a massive abuse of power with that. So there will be, the last time Saturn Pluto, I think I spoke about it, when it was in Capricorn, or when Saturn was about to into Capricorn for the conjunction, Martin Luther pinned his 95 Thesis on the door. And from that was the biggest overthrow in the history of Europe, in our recent history of Europe. And well, it's not that recent, but was the start of the Reformation, and it was a massive change of leadership, and the way that we do things, and it was that 95 Thesis was about ensuring corruption didn't continue on the level that it did. It was an economic issue, and this is all what's happening now. I mean, it's right in our face everywhere, and so yeah, it's going to be a very interesting time in terms of how the world will change and be managed, and by whom as well.
Before we continue in 2020, because you are British, I wanted always to ask that. Your president or prime minister says that you're going out of UK and that the 31st of October that Mercury is going retrograde.
I know. It's going to be interesting, isn't it? It's going to be interesting. And it's like, yeah. Well, I mean, the Queen's speech was today, which I haven't heard, and I haven't heard the Prime Minister making any statement. But, this is all a bit of a joke, really, isn't it? I mean, it's so embarrassing. It's so embarrassing. I mean, from every government office around the world, particularly the Oval Office in Washington, D.C., and the number 10 Downing Street, the loss of respect for those governmental offices is huge. And it's going to take a long time for people to respect them again. I mean, but in saying that, there are very few leaders around the world right now that are respected. And I am proud to say that I am New Zealand, and I'm very proud of the New Zealand Prime Minister and her ability to react to terror and manage the country in the way that she does. But there are very few leaders in the world like that. There are not many people that are. It's such a divide. And this is what Saturn, Pluto, and Capricorn does as well. It divides. It divides between right and left, and right and wrong. If it's Saturn, Pluto, and Capricorn is not. It's not going to be fun, and it's not going to be easy. It's going to be dire, but we're already feeling it, and we're in the midst of it. And it's something that has to be ridden out But it's these, it is in the background of all of that, though, in the massive background of that, is that Jupiter Saturn building to conjunct in Aquarius at 0 degrees, very pertinent degree. And that's happening in the background, and this is more the younger generation coming forward and saying, don't want any, we're not putting up with this. And they're going to create, they're going to be a part of creating quite a different world for going forward, I think.
Mm-hmm. And what's special that this 2020, exactly as you said, is having three complete circles: Jupiter, Pluto, Jupiter, Saturn, and Saturn, Pluto, all at the same time. And this Jupiter Saturn conjunction is going to be in the air signs from now on.
Yeah.
And how you believe that is going to affect society and people's lives?
When it moves from Earth to air.
The movement from the Earth to
Yeah,
the.
well, it's going to be fast, and it's going to be radical, and it's going to be huge. And life is not going to be the same anymore as we know it. Earth is slow, and it's materialistic, and it's female, and air is male, fast, and it's going to be electric. It's 0 degrees Aquarius. It's huge, and like the last time this happened in early 13th century is when astrology took off on a massive scale, and it was not just, and it was also tried to be distributed as sort of a universal, not a universal order, but sort of like a textbook of astrology written by the King of Castile at the time, who wanted it for Jews, Catholics, um, Christians, um, and Muslim as well. So there's going to be such an effort to bring people together. I'm just concerned what the conditions are going to be in order to create that, to have that concern in the first place. But the um, yeah, it's going to be rapid, and it's Aquarius, so we're going to be completely obsessed with the sky, and everything that goes with that, from flying. Personally, people flying. They're already, what was it, 6 weeks ago in France, they were created the machine to fly, human beings to fly, which the French police are now adopting. So it's starting to look like the Terminator, really. But you know, with police flying around, and but this is what's going to happen. And but it's also our place in space. I think we're going to be interested in our place in the entire universe and what that means. Um, are we alone or are we not? And the obsession with aliens, the obsession with space flight, all things Uranus, which rules Aquarius. But that it'll also be a massive intellectual um, movement as well. I think part of that will be technological, but our obsession with the brain and
Mhm.
all these sort of things, um, I think will dominate our thoughts, our theories, our interests, certainly our newspapers, and maybe even ISA, ISA communicating. We'll all be doing this. We'll all be talking about the sky, and well, all things Aquarius, and which is democracy. Aquarian is the most democratic sign. It's about equality for all, and that's what's, you can feel that building now. You can,
Mhm.
mm,
There are two basic also ideas about the merge of machine and human, about the singularity. There are ideas about how artificial intelligence is going to affect our daily life. And I think that the most of the humanity may not be ready finally.
no, I think a lot of people, a lot of people over the age of perhaps even 40, right now, I would say, are not going to be ready. You, it's the generations being born now, can program mobile phones at the age of 3 months almost. I'm joking, but there's a quite a different mindset. And my one of my concerns, I said a while back, was the biggest problem we're going to be faced with is people keeping up. It is going to be about people keeping up because the technology is going to be runaway. And there's going to be a lot of pressure for younger people also to keep up. So they're going to be spending, lots of time, energy, and thinking about, using, developing, um, uh, policing, monitoring, regulating, all that sort of stuff. It's going to be constant, yeah, but it's going to be, quite a different world, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and perhaps a world that is so different that we may feel like the grandmothers that they struggle to learn about the mobiles,
Yeah.
and they try to
But you're
learn.
not 40 yet, Christos. You'll be fine.
I'm 37. I'm by 3 years saved.
I know. Yeah, exactly. No, but it is going to be a concern. I mean, you could, the older generation sort of suffered when, 20 years ago when email and mobile phones and all that sort of thing came in. But that is nothing. We're still at the very start of a massive technological revolution that we haven't even seen.
Mhm.
We're not even, you know, we're still at the beginning, and
Mhm.
it's going to be and it's going to be fast. Air
Mhm.
is fast. We're talking about the singularity. Well, Ray Kurzweil is talking about downloading the brain. Um, this decade within the 2020s, which is massive. That will change human history, for human culture, humanity forever. Um, when you can start downloading and uploading brains, you know,
Yeah, and then how religion, for example, is going to
yeah,
react.
yeah. And I'm not quite sure where that's going to sort of, well, again, the cycle of the Saturn Pluto in 1525 or 1517, I think it was. Um, it was the end of one thing and the beginning of another,
Mhm.
in terms of who governs what people believe. Um, so, I think, yeah, there's going to be quite a big movement, and there's going to be a loss of religion as well. I mean, people are
Mhm.
fed up, really, and young ones are really not interested. Young people are not filling the churches. They are not filling, they're not seeking that. Um, they want answers that they're not being given. Yeah, full on. They're not being given what they need, I don't
Mhm.
think. But technology and things like astrology can provide that. I believe. I think that's going to be a massive avenue for young people.
And I think even astrology is going to have some turbulence because if you can upload and download your brain and all these cognitive functions are explain something, then what about soul and what about spirit?
Yeah, right. Yes. And yeah. And there's already some things like that that need overhauled in astrology, because there's a lot of gender typing with astrological interpretation that needs sort of a good, thinking about. But yeah, there is going to be that. Uh, what's what's concerning really is, I think if astrology was abused by the wrong people, Nick Campion once said, he was, after he watched the Minority Report on TV, he was quite horrified that if astrology ever became mainstream, and he's quite right, and it's like, okay, they have this, and it's like, so because the problem with Jupiter, Saturn, and Aquarius is we could become a lot more deterministic
Mhm.
in our interpretation. Uh, yeah, so I think, yeah, we need to again come back to like these filters and be educating people on really broad subjects, because astrology is so broad. Um, there's so many different schools of thought, but the knowledge also needs, as much as it needs accessed, it needs filtered and protected as well, I think.
But imagine what is going to happen in the Jupiter, Saturn, and Gemini.
Yeah.
There is nothing going to be determined.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure about anything.
Well, I always think, this all is happening. I sort of remind students as well that the biggest cycle in our solar system is the Neptune-Pluto cycle, when they conjunct in 1892 and 1893. And what happened out of that period was incredible. I mean, well, for a start, Neptune, Pluto, and is psychology and the start of films, and it was called the naughty 90s and all this sort of stuff. But it was in Gemini. The planets conjunct in Gemini, and I believe that, and this is a 500-year cycle, and we're only 130 excuse me, 130 years into that cycle, into that 500-year cycle. And it's in Gemini. And this was, when you think of the 20th century being planes, trains, and automobiles. So Gemini, it's going to be with the start of the information era of humanity, all from that Neptune-Pluto conjunction in Gemini. So when Jupiter-Saturn conjunct in Gemini, it's just going to pole vault, like, it's going to be huge. Excuse me. So yeah, exciting though.
Yeah, I think that it is where the information is going to have even more intense power. It is not about matter, is not about energy, is about information.
Yeah,
when we are talking especially with Gemini, but all of the other signs. So you're writing a book about the 2020.
Yes, it's nearly finished. It should have been finished months ago, but yeah.
And you are writing all about 2020, or you're just going even further?
I'm looking at that particular period and how it's going to lay the foundations going forward for that Jupiter Saturn in the air signs for the next 200 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
well, not so much about the next 200 years, but what it's going to lay the groundwork for, like the Neptune, Pluto, and Gemini did in 1890. 2 and 3, or 1 and 2, one or the other. Yeah.
And from which publishing house and from where we're going?
I don't know yet. I don't know. I've been asked to submit some things to people, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. In fact, last week I was just going to put it all online, so I actually don't, because it's just dragging out. But so I don't know. I still may do that yet. I'm not sure. So
just tell me when it's ready.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you, first of all, let's say our big condolences to the family, and of course that we've lost the great astrologer.
We have, and it's a very, very sad day. I mean, it was he lived a long time, Andre Babo, and I don't know if you know, he died the same day as his wife.
Oh.
It's beautiful. Well, it's sad. But they were in their 90s, and she died in the morning and he died in the afternoon.
Oh.
Which I think is incredibly romantic, I have to say, But yes, he was the incredible mundane astrologer, the father of mundane astrology. And he didn't really feel that 2020 was so big. He's looking more at 2032, which will be the
Saturn, Neptune,
and the the opposition, Saturn Pluto opposition as well. He's talking about that from he talks about that this is a period where Europe is going to start breaking up. And 2032 is when it will be basically completely dominated by China. That's his thoughts, and that's on his book From Planetary Angles. So not Planetary Angles, no, sorry.
Planetary Cycles, Mundane Astrology.
Thank
I
you.
think
Yeah.
it is of the Astrological Association, the publishing
Yeah,
of,
we did, and I
yeah.
helped edit it, and yeah, and got Barbo books translated. Yes,
Yeah, I
it
think
was
it's
a
yours.
project. Well, Roy Gillett project managed the whole thing, but yeah, it was certainly a group
I
effort.
think I have it here in order to the
It's
people to see it.
not, why am I saying
Oh,
planetary?
this one.
Yeah,
This one.
yeah, and yeah, he speaks very much about the 2032
Mhm.
yeah cycles, which, but I'm he wrote very little about the 2020 stuff. He didn't write a huge amount,
No.
um, but
He mostly
he,
speaks about the inequality of things that is going to happen in 2020.
yeah, yeah, and he's, I mean, anything that Andre Barbeau writes is pretty magical, to be honest, and he's got a pretty high rate of success in his predictions as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
So we're writing your book about 2020, before this January 2020.
yep.
Okay. And I wanted to ask you also about something that I think a lot of people usually are having a lot of questions, because we are usually in the natal charts try to look at things that they exist, but sometimes when something is not, maybe more important. So I would like to ask about the unexpected
Mm.
planets.
Yeah, well, I mean, I got interested in unaspected planets many years ago when I was in New Zealand, and I had a client whose daughter was diagnosed with hyperactive disorders and stuff like that, and she was only 4. And it was really fascinating for me because this child had a Mars in Aries that was unaspected.
Mhm.
Everything else, and it didn't stand out in her chart. It wasn't, there was nothing that you would automatically look for. But when someone has hyperactivity, it usually is something that you're looking for in the chart. So when when it was sort of like, okay, this planet is unaspected, and this child was people were doctors were trying to medicate her, um, and the parents were really, really cool. So they got a lot of health professionals together, and myself, I wasn't a health professional. And together we worked on different ways we can work with her. And we advised the parents to put her into lots of different things. And one of the things they did was put her into martial arts. And
Mhm.
she actually became a master. She became a master at that. Now, if you looked at her chart, there isn't anything in that chart that would make you automatically think that she had a strong Mars, but it was dominant. It was so dominant. And of course, you know, unaspected planets is not, there's not a lot written on it. And it goes back to, it's in the Tetrabilius, so by Ptolemy. So, it's a very old concept, but and I actually think working with clients, students, and research, I actually really believe that it's one of the most dominant things in the chart. You can actually think of somebody, and then you think, I wonder if they have an unaspected this or that.
Mhm.
And pretty much they will. And or you can think of somebody and think, I wonder if they have an aspected particular planet, and they do. It's that obvious, it's that huge, and I think it's dominant. And I think most people, when they talk about it, see it as a negative, and I actually see it as a really incredible talent and gift that that when harnessed, it can be used really productively, and it's what, yeah, can be wonderful,
Mhm.
wonderful.
And your rules when a planet is unexpected,
Well,
because I've heard many people saying different things.
I don't have, I have my own rules.
Hmm.
And I say to people, you can do what you want. You follow your own rules. Like, for me, for example, I'd use because I don't think there is any hard and fast rules with orbs, for example. I say to students, look, uh, a Venus Mars conjunction by 6 degrees is a lot weaker than a Moon Pluto at 10. You can
Mm-hmm.
feel if the moon is applying to Pluto, you can still feel it at 10 degrees. So, I don't think there are any hard and fast rules. I mean, Jeffrey Dean said 5 degrees across the board, but it's different. A Mars Venus sextile, which happens so frequently, is quite different than a Sun opposite Neptune.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the orbs, I think you need to explore it on a case by case basis. Um, and so it's not, for me, it's not, yeah, I mean, when I put charts up of unaspected planets, people are always counting. They're always counting. I'm like, trust me, just go with it. Because there's always people that want to, you know, um, yeah, have the rules. And astrologers, I think, we can be quite Saturnian sometimes, and we need to limit it. But I think it needs to be, for example, case by case. Like I said, if someone has, you know, sun conjunct Mercury, well, there's going to be a massive more probability of that than someone
Mm-hmm.
having, you know, um, Moon Uranus conjunction, or something like that. So,
Yeah.
so we have to be sensible and apply orbs appropriately. So I always say and it's the same with minor aspects, like
Mm-hmm.
unaspected planets are usually major, they're Ptolemaic aspects. But I say to people, if you want to use minor aspects, Keplerian aspects, feel free to do so. It's
Mm-hmm.
if you want to use Chiron, use you can do whatever you like, but if you the more you sort of apply these things, you can by your own set of rules, you will start seeing patterns though with unaspected planets. You will
So
it's
the chart is going to speak for this particular
of,
individual. Yeah.
of course it is. Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
And even if, for example, if you have an out of sign aspect.
Well, yeah, even that, again, that's another rule or something like that. But it depends. Like,
Mm-hmm.
for example, if Pluto's at 29 of Cancer and Mercury's at 2 degrees of Leo, it's still Pluto Mercury conjunction, Or, particularly if it's applying. If Mercury's at 29 Cancer and Pluto's at 2 or 3 of Leo, it's an applying conjunction. It's definitely that person.
You're going to
Yeah.
feel it.
I've actually sat with someone before who said, no, 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 it's not a conjunction. And they actually worked in decoding things. And we were actually sitting with a bunch of astrologers, and we said to this person, that Mercury is definitely aspecting Pluto. It's only a couple of degrees, and they worked in decoding.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah. So again, depending on, I think it has to be looked at though. But you can find someone. You can think of the most mercurial job, or the most mercurial person, and you will find people that celebrities, politicians, singers, whatever, that have that unaspected Mercury. And you'll think of people with unaspected moons. Like this is how I started. And I thought, unaspected moons, there must be a lot of chefs out there, a lot of
Mhm.
chefs that have unaspected moons. And there are. There's loads of, um, there's many. Um, and the same with Mercury. It's technology and writing and speaking. So you can go through the planets, and you can actually, do some searching online, and you'll
Mhm.
find that all these people that you think of, you know, um, frequently have that unaspected planet that you thought of, which is pretty incredible when you think about, you know, someone I did an article years ago for the journal, the Astrological Journal, on Neptune transits. I was just writing on Neptune transits, and I called the article um, uh, "Follow the Little White Rabbit." That's what I named the article. And then I thought, oh, Lewis Carroll, who wrote Alice in a Wonderland. I bet, because his whole work is so Neptunian. It's so incredibly Neptunian. I thought, I bet he's got an unexpected Neptune. And you go to the, software, and you'll ask whatever, and you bring it up, and sure enough, he has. And this is not rocket science. It's not hard research. It's actually really, really obvious. And you can do that with so many, you know, either the people looking for the planets or the planets looking for the people. It's that overt for me, I think, you
Do
know.
you have any planet that for you is very special, that's when it's going unexpected? Any planet that you say, wow, this is something?
I think when Pluto, I think what really interested me was when Pluto went unaspected into Capricorn in 2008. That was a real, because if you look at the chart for when Pluto ingressed into Capricorn, um, uh, and if you, at the time, the Hadron Collider, you know, which is about 200 miles south of um, Geneva. It
Mhm.
sits on the border of France and Switzerland or something like that. And of course, the Hadron Collider, they're drilling into the Earth,
Mhm.
hundreds of miles to find the God particle, to find out all about our existence. And I found really interesting, Pluto was ingressed into Capricorn. But not only that, if you set the chart for that specific location, it was exactly on the IC. So
Wow.
yeah, really
Wow.
fascinating, going
Wow.
drilling. And of
Mhm.
course, people were concerned about black holes at the time. Um, you know, what's his name? Steve, astrophysicist. I can't remember his name.
Black holes?
Yeah, and what's his name? Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. The man who, the man he's in the wheelchair. He's in a wheelchair, and he died a couple of years.
Ah, he passed away, yeah.
Yeah, Stephen
Hawking.
Hawking.
Oh.
Stephen Hawking. That's the one.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, he raised concerns initially about these black holes that this hadron collider might actually create.
Mhm.
Um, but it's fascinating, and that for me was very interesting. At Pluto, 0 degrees Capricorn, and sits on the IC of that particular location. It's not
Mhm.
going to do that, you know, anywhere else. So that excited me. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you open in using other planets for your own personal job? Like using, not for the others, Wendy, about Chiron or about any asteroid being unexpected? Are you going to
Yeah,
use
I
them?
use I use Chiron. I have to admit I don't know enough about Eris and Sedna and Ceres, and I don't know, you know, I know a little bit, but not enough to include them completely. But I do encourage students
Mhm.
to be open-minded and explore them. In fact, I was doing that earlier this evening, just saying, and saying, we don't know enough about them. And I'm going to just digress for a minute, but when I was researching my for my Uranus square Pluto book, I went to the astrological journals, and I wanted to see what was written in the 60s about the Uranus Pluto conjunction.
Mhm.
So I got all these boxes of old journals out, and went through them, and there was nothing. There was nothing at all, because Pluto was so young in terms of our discovering its existence, that astrologers hadn't got on board with Pluto. So no one talked. I think there was one line where Julia Parker called the Uranus Pluto generation might be skid kids, which I don't really know what that means. And Dennis Alwell wrote something that implied something about the Uranus Pluto conjunction, but this was huge. So I think not including, you know, rather large planetoids out there,
Mhm.
um, is yeah, we need to
Mhm.
research and explore them a lot more.
I've heard about the research about some astronomers saying that we may have a very, very small black hole going around our solar system. And that is the reason that we've seen a lot of disturbances in the orbits of the planets, of the outer planets. So instead of having a planet X, we may have a black
Black
hole
hole,
going around.
black hole.
That would be great,
Yeah,
even in an
I
astrological way.
well, Christine Skinner did a really interesting talk a couple of years ago on how the Milky Way, I don't really know much about, I don't really know, but I would like to learn more about this, how, and she did it, and it is available. I'm not, this isn't an advert, but it is available in the archive of the her Carter Memorial a few years back at the conference. But how the Milky Way is actually moving, how it's the way it's moving through the universe is very interesting, and we are moving into areas that we're not familiar with. And she did some amazing sort of diagrams, and and so I think this is going to be a really massive focus. And like talking before about filtering out astrology, astrological stuff, there's going to be a lot of rubbish that comes forward, but there's going to be a lot of really interesting good stuff as well. And our place in the universe, um uh yeah, and black holes is going to be a very big concern. um but also everything about, we have such limited knowledge, really,
Yeah.
don't we, when we think about it.
And I've had a terrifying scientific prediction that the world is going to end up in just having black holes. So it's just that there are going to be around just black holes around the universe, but that would be weird.
Yeah, that would be weird. That would be weird. And every generation has an apocalyptic thought of something, and that probably, whilst we're looking into space, that's going to be quite, if it's not that, it's going to be aliens are coming to,
Yeah.
destroy the earth or whatever. you know, there's going to be a lot of that. A lot of that.
So, an unexpected partner for you is always something very important, and you're writing a book also about it.
Yes, yes. That should be published within the next, well, certainly by January anyway.
Okay, and by yourself, self-published?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know yet. I don't know. I've got a lot of things I need to. Um, yeah, I haven't even approached anyone really, and it's been a work I've been doing for, I don't know, 10 years really. Um, so I have no idea. I have no idea who's going to publish it. Um, yeah, I keep thinking I just need to publish what I've done, really, to get it out there, so I can move on and get on with the next project. But um, so, but
Are you just adding and adding things,
oh
and
yeah,
they
I
say, "Oh,
do,
I
I
have to do
do,
that"?
and I want to give it, I want to, do justice to the topic, because it's underwritten about, really. And so I just, just keep putting loads of different examples and profiles and stuff like that. But then, and things like, and then I keep adding, because, one of the new waves at the moment is, a return to harmonic astrology.
Mhm.
So harmonics is becoming very trendy in the West. And so, which means that there is no unaspected planet. So again, I need to sort of, include all of this, and so I need to, think about it on different,
Incorporate it, and
yeah. So it's just not ready, but
but we will have it till January.
you would have it by January. Yes,
Okay,
yes,
that's
definitely,
good.
definitely.
So you're also a chairperson for the Astrological Association of Great Britain. And what are your plans? It is one of the biggest, and I think you are the oldest astrological
No, we're
association.
not the oldest. The Astrological Lodge of London is about, oh god, it's about 105 now, and they're our mother, really. But the AA, yeah, it's an umbrella organization, and we're in the beginning of doing some really great changes, and we just want to uh, sort of make ourselves more accessible.
Mhm.
Um, and be part of that responsibility of ensuring that the next generation of astrologers, and the existing ones as well, um, have access to good material. Um, so we have a good working team, purely working towards um, creating quite a different astrological association, actually, sort of making it very accessible, and offering a lot of services to people, and as cheap or as free as we can possibly provide. So that is our goal and has been since our last meeting in August, where we decided we were going to be investing and driving the association into, um, yeah, being prepared for the next generations of astrologers, really. So that's our
I
that's
found
our
this fascinating because I've seen it in Astrological Association in the ASAR too, that they're both are giving their material to the public, and there are a lot of videos, a lot of journals, a lot of articles that people can access. It's not just about come to the conference or you are not going to see anything.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, we have the journal, of course, which is our,
Hmm.
it's an incredible publication, and we're very lucky to have our editor, Victor Oliver. He's amazing, um, and he's very tapped in and networked into, and going to drive them. He's driven the journal, um, to, to to quite a different level, which we are really happy with. But there's it's always constantly changing, and as is the audience, and certainly the new generation of astrologers, you know they're going to have different demands, different needs, different services they're going to want us to provide, so we have to accommodate that, well, as much as we possibly can. Yeah. Mm.
And what do we believe is the next step for every organization, astrological organization? What's the next step? What we have to do?
I think we have to listen to the young, preserve what's been done, um, protect the good material. Like I said, like filter the rubbish. There's so much rubbish out there, and there really is. And when I have students reference something, and I'm like, oh my god, this is you can't, that because they're there's so much stuff out there. Some of it's great. Some of the websites I think are fantastic, um, but some of them are not. And there's only going to be more rising out of this, and people exploiting it and exploiting other people as well. So I think organizations like ISAR, and all the other American organizations, AFAN, NCGR, that's I think, and the AA's job here, all these sort of organizations. I think it's really important what we have in the UK, which I uh, really encourage and support, is we have an organization. It sounds very um, organization orientated, but it's a panel of educators which ensure that the schools and organizations are are reaching a certain standard. And not only does it alleviate a lot of politics that can go on, but what it means is that there is some benchmark. And this is what homeopaths, psychologists did, homeopaths did. So we need a form of self-regulation before someone else comes in and decides to do it for us. So any form of being able to do that, like we do in the UK with our APAE, which is the Advisory Panel for Astrological Education. So any school or organisation can join us, but they have to meet a certain criteria, which is not difficult, but it does ensure it's not difficult at all, but it's just a benchmark. Um, that people, I sound very Saturnian when I say this, and I don't mean to,
Well,
but
each organization, so it will be.
well, it just needs to have, and that way it just means that you can. There's a, it can just maintain. It provides a filter, really. That's what it
Mhm.
does. It's not so Saturnian at all, you know. Um, but it's that sort of these sort of panels and regulatory things, which are very Saturn, Pluto, and Capricorn, but we do need them because there is things that are running away. That there's runaway technologies,
Yeah.
um, Facebook, Instagram, all these, they are run, and they've come up against some pretty hard stuff in the last couple of years. But we need to be able to regulate to continue going forward.
Hmm.
Um,
And perhaps understand that you need to have something like a constructive criticism when you are doing things that.
Yeah, and you just need people to be qualified, and you need
Mhm.
people to be, that students can have a complaints procedure, and things are double marked by tutors, which are very just sensible things, and that there has to be some graduates, and the school is established in some way, or the organization is established. So, it's not really, really tough military style entrance. It's just sensible benchmark. So when students and members want to understand what organizations do, they can understand that they take it seriously and they're not fly by night. And there's going to be so much of that with, well, there already is, but it's going to get even more so now. Yeah.
Okay. And if I ask you what are your personal on your of course profession, your personal future plans as a professional astrologer?
Oh, Christos, I'd just love to go to an island and write. That's what I'd love to do. But that's not going to happen. But no, I'm joking. I am joking.
If you decide for an island,
you can go.
are going to come to Greek island.
Yeah.
Okay, we can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I just want to research and write. I mean, I just want to continue researching. I've got lots of things I want to read, and there's things I know I haven't even thought about yet. So I would like the space in my life to really, I have a packed sixth house. And so I just get busy. So, I do need to take the time out and, get on with, the projects I really want to, and have the space to think about other projects I want to do. But I mean, I love research. I love research and writing. And
you are already doing research. You have already published things and you're already doing research, which is great. Always, I like that in astrologers.
Yeah, research is really, I always encourage research. It's like, this is how we learn, and this is how we move things forward. I mean, I'm a, great fan of any, good research and there's some really good stuff out there. Astrologers are doing some very good work. I was at the research conference in Florida in January, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, coming this January. And the quality of research, I was just so in awe of. Amazing. And, people have put their life's work into this. And, they're not funded. And we do it. Astrologers do it out of passion, out of curiosity and interest, but out of passion. And they often do it for free until they get funded or something. But this is changing too, with astrology in universities, both in America and the UK. This is all, there's a more academic style to a, so this is all positive stuff,
Well, this was my friend, the Astrological Voyages with Christos Archos, and I would like from Wendy to greet us with a hope for the future or a message that you wanted to share with us. Something to have a group lullaby for the night.
A group lullaby. I wish you'd warned me. I could have thought of something before.
I never did that. I'm Uranus.
Oh, be kind, be true, be honest. Yeah, have heart, and it's invest in the future rather than the divide that's going on around the world right now. It's not good. It's not good for the soul.
Thank you.
That's my lullaby today.
For today. Thank you very much. Well, it's lullaby because in Greece it's
1 o'clock
2 a.m. and 1 a.m. in UK, okay?
Exactly.
For the Americans,
it's 2 o'clock for you.
Yeah, it's 2 o'clock, yeah. It's a lullaby for Europe, for United States, go wild.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christos. Thanks to you and Isa for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye. And
take care. You too. Bye.
Bye.